Welcome to the Nevcast, where three bros talk business, art, justice, and the pursuit of Jesus.
Any day above ground is a good day.
Get ready to laugh, cry, and kiss 30 minutes goodbye with Peter Nevland,
Dave Nevland,
and
Rashid. All right, hey, welcome to week 2 of our conversation with Ingrid Yolanda. We couldn't stop it last week, and so we're going to keep it on going this week. Here we go.
Just couldn't stop it. It's the Nevcast.
Yes, Nevcast.com. Here we go.
So, it's interesting because, you mentioned this thing, the Lord knows all things. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's a Psalm 119, there's a verse, one of the many verses in Psalm 119 mm-hmm. that says, I have more wisdom than all my teachers, mm-hmm. right? It's in there. But then this other aspect of it, the courage to do something that you've never done before, and you keep doing this over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So 2 of the things that I'm curious about is, number one, where did this relate? How did this relationship with the Lord of you just speaking with Him over and over? When did that develop? Was that early on or later? And then the other question that I have is, how does it get easier the more that you do new things, walking with the Lord, and launch out into these new things you've never done before? Mm-hmm. The trust that, hey, He's going to come through. I'm not going to, be embarrassed or something, try something that it just doesn't work out, or maybe I miss God or something like that. Because I think that's most of us deal with, and you probably deal with that too. Yeah. Or tell me if you don't.
I do.
So there's just 2 things. I'm just curious to know those things, like where did this come from, and then also that.
And then what do you feel like in Austin you're going to be about? What are you in Austin to be about? Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to tell you guys first this part. What developed out of me painting that painting was teaching how to live your life supernaturally. Mm. But how the culmination of all this started, it started when I was really, really little. Yeah. I was, and I can't say black sheep, but I was like the child that was different in my family. So, and I was very much so an introvert, which I'm still an introvert, but I don't let that run my life. So I had an encounter when I was really, really little. I don't have time to tell that story, but yeah, I had a time. We can talk about that another time. So
you just in brief.
Yeah, I was 3 to 4. Between the age of 3 and 4, I died. So in that encounter, I went to see the Father. Right. So coming back, I think that kind of awakened something in me and in my life where difficult things made me run to God. So when difficult things were happening, I didn't run away from Him. I knew that He was always there. I knew that when I talked to Him, He would always speak to me. I didn't have that feeling that He didn't care or that He wasn't there. Right. So I kept leaning into that understanding that I had even when I was growing up, because my childhood was not easy. It was not easy for my siblings and I growing up, but I was also that child that I always felt rejection, all those kind of things that kind of build up in your life. So I had to deal with that later when I got older. But as a child, I could always go to the Lord. I would just run from the crowds of people in the house when we had family gatherings or things that were getting a little bit stiff, and I would go to my little quiet place in my corner in my grandmother's bedroom. If we were at my grandmother's house, her bedroom was like my safe haven. And I would go to her room, pull down the Bible out of the shelf, and I'll tell you guys one encounter that occurred is just me opening the Bible and words from the Bible just lifting off and like leaping into me, and I could hear the Bible read to me. Wow. So relationship just started building then. Not that I was perfect in it or anything like that. You're a kid, you're gonna go your own direction, do your own thing. But when I needed to get to that place, I knew He was always there. So and I'm very, very strong on relationship. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be done out of relationship, whether it's first with the Father and then with everyone around you. You can't just, be in there. Sure. So I think out of developing that as I was growing up, and I didn't get into a lot of the things that other kids got into because I had that relationship with the Lord. I had like this, I think older people would say that, I had a wisdom that was of a old person, like like a grandma. So and my grandmother was my best friend too, so that kind of helped. So,
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so with that, a lot of things that happened, I didn't think like other people. I thought adults, when I was a kid, I thought adults were stupid because I knew things and I didn't know how I knew things, but I thought you should definitely know that you're a grown up, but they didn't. And I didn't understand that until I got a lot older, and I thought, oh, people really didn't know what I was knowing when I was a kid. And I could, my mom's friends would come over and they'd have these conversations, and I'd talk to my mother after, and she was like, but I wasn't listening to their conversations.
Yeah.
And I would go and talk to her about stuff, and she'd be like, and I would get in trouble. Stop listening to adults' conversation.
Right.
Why are you listening to grown-ups' conversation? And I'd be like, I wasn't listening to your conversation. So then that made me more quiet. So then you stop talking, and then it's just me and Jesus, And so it became me and Jesus, and it was just the beauty of me and Jesus. So that's how I grew up. That's how I stayed out of a lot of trouble. That's how counseling my friends, and when I was a teenager, and it was interesting.
Wow, that's just wild. So now, you said when you were little, you thought, oh, these adults are stupid. Why don't they know that? Now, when you encounter someone who maybe doesn't know something,
think adults are stupid?
What's your
No, I'm just joking. No, I have much more mercy and grace for people now than I did.
Well, and everybody's got their own different talents. And everything like that. Yeah,
so true.
Right. So what is your what did I say that? Your approach when you find somebody who, let's say the Holy Spirit has shown you something that maybe other people don't know, how do you give them that information? Not so that you just know it and they don't, but that they so they can receive it from you. Can you give us any tips on sort of when you get these? I mean, because look, some of the stories you're saying, I mean, I'm down with it. I've had crazy weird stuff happen. I know Dave has. Rashi has also had crazy weird stuff happen to him, and we're kind of like, wow, this sounds really cool, but not everybody thinks that way.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you handle that? Have you encountered opposition to that? And even people, even say like when your mom thought, you were just listening in, but you weren't. How do you deal with that opposition that comes to, you shouldn't know this, but you do?
This sounds like this would be part of your coaching.
Yeah, it is. It has been that part of my coaching. And it was a lot of, even when I was little, how friends would always call me for advice. So, but I didn't know, I was in a Baptist church growing up.
Right.
So I didn't know like the terminology or language for, coaching or mentoring or, using your spiritual gifts to help people. It was just a natural thing that flowed from me. So when they were talking, I could hear what was what the solution was, but it was always that thing where God knows all things, but I didn't have that revelation until I got older. You know what I mean? It was a knowing when I was younger.
Right.
So what I would say to someone who didn't know something that I knew, one thing that I learned to do as I have been older, I would ask the Lord when I'm talking to people, will you give me witty conversation so that I could speak the language that they speak, so that I could, and he told me to feed people with the size of the spoon that they can eat from.
That's good.
Yes, so you don't want to give somebody food from a shovel if they can only take a baby spoon. So
how do you find out what size spoon somebody can take?
Oh, Jesus tells her.
He does, yes. So this is
you gotta ask that question.
I love questions. I love questions. So here's the thing, Peter, that happens when I'm talking to someone often, because you can feel where people. Well, I'll say I can feel, like everybody's not like that. So I can feel like where people are in their mindsets sometimes.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, and you can feel like when people are resistant, and you can feel when they're open. You can also tell when people are curious or just nosy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
So I adjust to the person.
Yeah, so you have to learn how to sense that.
Yeah, you have to learn how to sense it. And all that came out of relationship with the Lord and asking questions and being yourself, allowing your spirit to be at the forefront rather than your soul leading you or your flesh leading you in life. Because when our souls and flesh is married together, and this is a huge, great point that I love to teach. I even love to teach my coaching clients, is that because we're triune people, just like God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, when we look at it in that manner and we understand that our spirit, soul, and our body is just that, to be in that order: spirit, soul, then body. But oftentimes we have become accustomed to, and some churches also teach, the external. And a lot of people are looking for life from the external, and they don't look to the internal and understand the capacity that we have with Christ in us, the hope of glory.
Yeah.
He literally lives on the inside of us. The kingdom is within us, and people don't think that way.
Out of your heart flow the issues of life.
The issues of life. But when we understand more than even the issues wouldn't be there if we understood the fact that Christ in us, the hope of glory. When we understand that he is literally in us, that we have become the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, that's right.
And everything that's in the Ark of the Covenant is within us. That absolutely everything within the kingdom of God is in the inside of us, and we have everything we need for life and godliness. So I teach my clients that, and then I also teach them that your spirit, soul, and body have to be in alignment. It has to be in order. And I know there's other people who teach this, because I've heard it, that your spirit has to be at the forefront. Your spirit has to lead you. If your spirit is not leading and your soul is not married to your spirit, then that means your soul is married to your flesh. And when your soul is married to your flesh, you're just all over the place, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But when your soul is married to your spirit, and your soul is allowing your spirit to lead throughout your life and throughout your day, then you probably will get in less occurrences of situations. You still will, because we are we are living in this body, but we would have less occurrences of things happening, would have less occurrences where we're at odds with people. We learn in those instances to love past people and the faults that we have, because we have a better understanding with our spirit leading and our spirit showing us and teaching us those things in the midst of conversation.
When your eye is full of light, your whole body will be full of light. So it's where your focus, you put your focus. And so if you put your focus onto the spiritual things and on the things of the Lord, then everything else gets full of light and falls into place too. And so all of the, and because, temptation, so often it says no one's tempted by actual external things. We're tempted by our own desires. It's just a suggestion that may be made from the outside, from a demon or Satan or something like that, but it's your desire. And so if you put your focus and your desire on much better things, well, then temptation, it's like temptation may come, it just flies right past. I like that. That's really cool.
And that's what happens when when your spirit is bigger than your soul and your flesh. So it depends on what you're feeding. So if we're feeding our spirit more than we're feeding our soul, if we're feeding our spirit more than we're feeding our flesh, then we won't have those issues.
Now you're talking about all these spiritual things, all these biblical things. When you life coach, do your clients need to be Christians in order for you to life coach? What happens? Because you just go right there. What happens with your clients who maybe are not following Jesus?
It almost sounds like they just got to follow Jesus first.
They got to follow. You just got to get in line with Jesus.
Well, I mean, I would propose that it's a good thing for life if you just get in line with Jesus. So, I think we would all probably propose that. She would propose that as well, and does all the time. But so, like, what happens? Somebody comes in, they're your client, and man, Ingrid starts, telling them, hey, I just heard Holy Spirit say to me, we need to go to Macaroni Grill, and starts having a live vision. The person's walking with them, and they're like, what's going on? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, what happens when that stuff happens?
It's totally different. I was a flight attendant for over 13 years also. So this was my mission field and my training field on how to not speak Christianese, to live my life as an example to others and let the light of Christ shine. and how to have witty conversation with people on the level that they could understand it.
So you're speaking Christianese with us because we can understand Christianese.
And it comes out of it. It flows out of me because of who you are.
Rashid, do you understand Christianese?
What did you say there?
I said, do you understand Christianese?
No, I never heard of that.
I figured. I thought that might be the case.
Churchanese, like
Churchanese,
Christianese.
You know how people they'll be like,
language.
People talk to you like, oh man, brother, you just got to be saved. And man, I was in my quiet time, and all of a sudden I just had a revelation. Yeah, I've been going through this season. I just all this fruit's been coming out, and you're kind of like, what? Are you an arborist or? That's kind of Christianese, and people just use all this terminology that a lot of times only used in the church. An arborist. Sorry, last episode it was absquatulate, and I derailed the conversation with absquatulate. Now I derailed Dave with arborist.
Well, people probably don't think arborist.
Someone who takes care of trees.
Well, yes.
Someone who takes care of trees.
Yes.
Anyway.
Tree trimmer.
We are kind of tree,
I know, right?
Yeah, we are arborists.
There's a lot of trees in the Bible. Anyway, so you have to know, you have to know your audience.
Yeah, you have to know your audience.
Know the spoon or the shovel or the wheelbarrow
and you got to know where they're coming
truck.
from. If you ask, he knows all things. He knows people from the inside out, and that's a huge thing for me too. Is getting to know people from the inside out and not from the outside in. Because a lot of people, you meet people and it's like, you sum them up in like 2 seconds. You ask them the 2 squirrely, retarded questions that I hate when people ask. How old are you? What do you do for a living? And where do you live? Those are like the worst questions. Yeah, Don't ask people that.
I'll tell you, somebody may judge you just based on one of the words you just said. I've had people judge me based on that I use the word retarded.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right? Yeah, but it just means slow. If you look it up in the dictionary, to be retarded means that you're just moving a little slow.
It is.
Okay, RITARD or RETARD?
No, it's RET.
Yeah. But they both mean the same thing. RIT is the musical phrase. It means to slow down.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
So,
Peter, whatever happened to your good? What happened to your good friend David out of Waco that y'all had that church together?
Me and David out of that church in Waco.
Holy Moses!
Yeah, your good friend. His last name was Koresh.
Koresh, that's his good friend.
I'll tell you what happened to him. The lady named Janet Reno. Yes. Gave an order.
Yeah.
And there was some fire. He was purified by fire and bulldozers.
I think he was made to pass through the fire.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. Yeah. Very, very sad, very sad story, especially for a lot of the people around. I don't know what was that from?
Whatever happened.
He's just messing with me about talking about churchanese stuff. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, they would have had a completely different language.
Yeah, some strong churchanese.
Sorry about that, Rashid. I'm going to bring it down to a different place right here for us to not speak churchanese right now.
So let me ask you, being a life coach,
right?
Clearly, you didn't go to university for
that's exactly. I was like, man, these tactics, these techniques.
And then there's a spirituality aspect, and it seemed if I were to, and then the other thing, I mean, you're a woman. You are a woman of color, I think is how people say it now, right? And so you're in a place where not only are you doing things that you've never done before, but there's a lot of times you're probably doing things that no one has encountered. Someone who looks like you, talks like you, all these things, they've never seen anyone like that ever do things before. How do you deal with all those different challenges? Have you encountered pushback or roadblocks? And how do you deal with that? Because I just imagine, like, in my heart, I think in some ways, it reminds me of the story of, I can't remember the girl. I think it was in Alabama. I don't think it was in Mississippi, but the first girl that went to school. That's first black girl that went to school in a white school, and every day she would walk, and these people would just line up along where she would walk and just yell these hateful things.
It was Arkansas, right? It was Arkansas.
Maybe it was Arkansas. I don't remember which one it was, but I thought that was Alabama.
It was in Arkansas.
Arkansas. It was in Arkansas.
Yeah.
There we go.
Supreme Court versus School Board of Education, Arkansas.
That's what it was. Arkansas. You're right. Okay, thank you.
Governor stepped in to try to keep it from happening.
Yeah. Well, and so they asked her afterwards. They said, "How did you?" I mean, because she went on to do these amazing things. She became this amazing woman, and whenever she would talk to anybody, she had no bitterness for any of that experience. She had no obvious trauma or anything like that. And they asked her, how did you deal with that? And she said, every day I just walked with Jesus to school. He would take my hand, he would show up at my door, and he'd say, let's go walk to school. And I just kept my eyes on Jesus and never heard all the things that they would say to me. I mean, it reminds me of that.
I didn't hear all the things that people said to me.
You probably heard them.
No, I really did.
But your relationship with the Lord, you going and running to the Lord every time.
Yeah.
I mean, is that
That was the key. That was the
that's
key.
Been the key. Continues to be.
Yeah, and it still is the key. Yeah, because we're gonna run up against opposition.
Absolutely.
Forever.
Yeah. Do you eat it for breakfast or lunch or dinner or all three?
Sometimes all three,
Yeah.
But I don't eat it. I spit it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah, because if you
it.
eat it, then it'll start to turn parts of you hard and.
Because you're giving it power. You're giving it power. And the first opposition is with our families. And, they thought it was crazy.
And they look like us.
Who are you? Who do you think you are? It was that kind of like that kind of thing. Who do you think you are? You're you're Ingrid. Come on, you're Ingrid. I'm like, but this is true Ingrid. Yeah. This is true Ingrid, and I'm showing you your true you because this is what Christ did, and this is how he lived in the earth. And he was that example, and I'm following his example, and that's how I want to live my life. But if you don't want to live your life that way, I'm okay with it,
Yeah.
So don't try to make me not be who I am, Yeah. And so, I ran across a lot of struggles, even in ministry,
Sure.
just because I knew that I had like crazy revelation that people didn't have. I couldn't say a lot of the things that I knew. Like people are talking about those things now, but back when I was getting revelation about a lot of things, like I would like test to say like little things to people to see if they could chew on it or if they couldn't chew on it or if it would be received well, if it wouldn't. And some people would just listen, and I would have people listen, and then the next day they were preaching what I said in the pulpit, and I was like, okay, they got it, but they don't understand it. I don't know if that's helpful for the people. It sounded good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you go through, I went through things like that, lots of rejection, like, yeah, you can come and have a conversation with me, but don't teach that to that class.
Yeah.
Or, just things that were really, really interesting along the way. But I got over it because I didn't let it in. When you keep that out and you don't let that in and you say, oh, well, that's the way they think, but I know this is real. Yeah. And I know that this is something that somebody's going to need. So then after that, you just stop talking and you wait for the Lord to highlight, here is the person. Here's where you're going to share. Here's where you're not going to share. This, just using your discernment, which is so important that we use discernment in spouting revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel privileged that you're even sitting here.
I know. I was like,
I feel so honored.
I feel like my heart is going,
thank you, Father.
Thank you, Lord. And at the same time, I want to find some way, how could I be a part of encouraging who you are and supporting who you are, putting a spotlight on who you are and just receiving. I mean, we're receiving right now, but just in continuing, I would just say, maybe as maybe people hearing this, it's like, what would be the things that we could do to really just, bring encouragement, bring support? What are the things that would really be beneficial for you as far as being supported, maybe even in ways that you haven't before? Is there anything that we can do? Do you even know?
I don't even know how to answer that question.
It's a big question.
I don't know how to answer that question. I never know how to answer a question when somebody's asking me what I need or what I want.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, that's just honest. Thank you so much for having me here today. That is, that's huge,
How can people find out more about, like, say, if somebody needs some coaching and would need, like, I would love to have somebody who's got incredible revelation, who's got amazing wisdom, who's very articulate, who's sensitive, who's super smart, and has a ton of experience in a wide variety of fields to help me in my life to be more successful, and also is connected to Jesus. It could help me be connected to the one who knows everything. Like, how can they get in touch
Yeah,
with you?
I
How
mean,
could
do we
they
put your email address right here or what?
start this whole thing of pointing to it on the screen? Where is it?
Yeah, I do have an email address, and it's rather odd. I need to probably change the name of my coaching business because it's a mouthful. Apostrophe.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, right?
I'll make up a song that
We're gonna
shows
have to-
people how to spell it.
It's right
A-P-O-T-H.
here along the screen somewhere.
APOTH.
Soap.
Right here in
Huh?
between us. Or something.
Apple soapy.
Wait, how is it?
Apple soapy.
Apple soapy.
Yeah,
So
the
Apple?
apple soapy.
Apple TH Soapy.
Yeah.
SOPE.
SOAPIE.
Oh,
like
soapy.
soap.
SOAPIE.
SOAPIE.
Apple THSOAPIE. Almost.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Apple
And it's more like Apple, like
THSOAPIE.
like apothecary. Apple.
Oh, Apple.
Oh, Apo. Yes.
APOTHSOAPIE.
That's it. Yay.
APOTHSOAPIE.
Yeah, that's it.
.com. Apostrophe.com.
Apostrophe at iCloud.com.
At what?
iCloud.com.
iCloud. APOTHSOAPIE at iCloud.com.
Wow. I
You guys are
I still
amazing.
won't remember that.
You guys are so awesome.
You'll remember
It's true.
APOTHSOAPIE.
Well, and it's written right here too. So,
Right. We can
Yeah.
see it.
That's cool.
but you can link to that from your Facebook page too, right?
Yeah, I have an apostrophe on my Facebook page, or just my personal Facebook page, Ingrid Yolanda.
Yeah.
Ingrid Yolanda. Yeah, you can look up Ingrid Yolanda as well.
That's
on
your
Facebook.
family's last name, Yolanda.
No, Yolanda is my middle name.
Oh, it's
Okay.
your middle
I
name.
just made it my name. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
so your
It has such
surname is a
meaning.
secret.
It has my name, McGee, McGhee.
Oh yeah, go with
Yeah.
Yolanda. Yeah, that's great.
Ingrid Yolanda.
Right,
Does
well
that sound
done.
much better?
I like
I'm
it.
with you.
I'm
Yes, I
down.
like
'Cause
that. It's very cool.
Because yeah,
got a ring to it.
Otherwise,
I like
it's Scottish. McGee is Scottish.
It
It's
is, and
Scottish.
actually I do have Scottish blood. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, Scottish and Irish blood
There we go.
in our family.
Man, this has been awesome. You know, I feel like we found some repeat guests. Maybe just because we've had guests.
Ingrid is a repeat. I mean, yes.
She's got to be a repeat
Well-
guest, and I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but this has been the Nevcast. This has been a fantastic, fun journey. Rashid, have you had a good time?
Man, I had a great time, man.
I mean, we are at the
Great.
end of part 2. So
Yeah, we
yes.
definitely are at the end of part 2, and hopefully it's to be continued. So check us out, find out the Nevcast on iTunes, Spotify, all that kind of stuff, and we will see you next week. That's it for the Nevcast this time. Join us next week when we talk justice, business, and art in pursuit of Jesus. We will see you soon.